his mom, he grew up with Chinese parents in Chicago, I think, and ended up becoming gay, living a gay lifestyle. Would say, I think, without misquoting him, that he was born gay, so to speak. He would feel like he was born gay. I think from the perspective of where we come from, we're so scared to even talk about it in our culture and the culture that we live in, like right where we are, I'm saying, in our Dutch culture.
Yeah.
There's such a phobia around even a discussion about same-sex attraction, while lots of people that are heterosexuals and married struggle with these things. Like, it's definitely not so rare that you know, for me, I know.
No, I think it's quite common actually in the circles we come from. It's just way more hidden.
It's just so hidden. So I guess for me, the book was beautiful. It talked about, so the book was jumping chapter to chapter, was from mom to son.
Okay.
And it talked about how they were both prodigals, and she shared her story of coming to faith in the Lord. And it was just a beautiful book. I was reading it to my oldest son and my wife one night for like an hour, and I was just weeping. It was so sad. And it was beautiful. Like, even her and her marriage, like, her marriage was off the rails, total disaster. And I don't want to share the whole book in case someone's going to go.
So titled Out of a Far Country, A Gay Son's Journey to God, A Broken Mother's Search for Hope.
Yeah.
That's the title.
Yeah.
I just bought it.
Really cool.
Out of a fun. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it's, you know, sometimes you recommend books and people are like, oh, but it's actually a really interesting read. And he ends up in jail. And so shares his whole story. Okay. I'll leave it at that. But so that was, and it was the family day.
Who told you about it?
I bought it for a specific reason, just because of the journey I'm walking with somebody. So I bought it and I knew it would be a good book, because I knew that he was asked to speak at a church here in Chilliwack a few years ago. And I've heard that our church would recommend stuff on he's about celibacy. He's falls.
Are you comfortable around gay guys?
Yeah.
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 Always have been?
No, but I could share a lot of experiences about how I was like taken advantage of by people that had those tendencies. Even like when I first quit drinking and went to AA, like, I was Dutch, young, naive, like, obviously I'd done a lot of dumb things, but I really didn't understand the ways of the world and how the things that people are struggling with. So I had some pretty weird experiences, and
it took me freedom session that really made me. I had a few girls I knew that were lesbian. Yeah, that I hung out with, and it would still have seen now once in a while. Nicole will have them over for dinner or something, or and then but for the guys thing, I just like shut down.
So I could share a real personal story. I grew up, like, when I quit drinking, I was 19, and one of my good buddies, older guy than me, probably 10, 15 years older than me, I would say, was married with 4 kids and lived a really good life, had been sober 15 years, was successful in the idea of being successful with, like, having kids. And he owned a karate club in Surrey, and he was just kind of a buddy of mine and pretty influential in helping me stay sober and quit drinking. And then he moved away. He ended up moving back to Ontario, probably like in 2000 and 4 or 5, like 3 or 4 years after I quit drinking or whatever. But I was pretty young at the time. I was probably in my early 20s. And then I went to a conference, and I think Marie and I were newly married, so it would have been 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there in those years. Went to this conference in Calgary, a farming conference, and I went to church, some Baptist church in Calgary, just on my own. There must have been a lot of Christians at the conference, but I went to church, and I don't know what it was in the sermon. So in the interim, this guy had moved to Calgary, to Ontario, and ended up leaving his family and started living a gay lifestyle and living, having a boyfriend or whatever.
Left his family.
Left his family with, kids that are in their teens to young adult years at this point, right? This is 10 years later. So probably like between 15 and 25. And initially when he called me, I distinctly remember him calling me where I was, and I kind of was like just shell shocked. And I don't think I skewered him per se, but he knew I was a Christian and probably was waiting for the judgment that would come from me. And I don't think I responded in grace anyways.
You responded harshly?
Yeah. And cold.
Much different than you would respond today, right?
Well, what happened? Yeah. So what happened was I was at this church service in Calgary at this Baptist church, and just felt super convicted about how I don't know why, I can't even remember what the sermon was about, but I was just so convicted and felt like such a judgmental hypocrite, and just thought, man, like, this is the one example of a Christian guy. This guy's a non-Christian, obviously. And I think that's where we get mixed up, is people that go to church. We forget who's a Christian, who's not, and what it means when you are and when you're not, and how you would respond to sin when someone's, when somebody is a non-believer, Like
They're
not
a
a Christian,
non-believer.
and they're committing. They're a non-believer, so they're
Just like
they're
you're
hard.
not, you're non-believer if
If you're not, like,
Yeah.
you know. So I think for me, it was kind of like, hey, I had this moment where it's like everything I had been uncomfortable with. And in the interim, I had a bunch of unique, I won't get into all the experiences, but just enlightening experiences, so to speak, and challenging experiences. So then I just responded with grace, and I called them up out of that church. If I randomly called them up, and I just made amends. And so out of
How
that
did he
came
respond to
some
that?
relation. I mean, appreciated it, but basically it said, yeah, you're a total prick and judgmental, whatever.
Nice.
And then since then, Marie and I have had him and a partner over at our house
Okay.
for dinner one time. And even that, I'm wondering, like, hey, have I done the right things? I don't know. I probably haven't processed it enough and thought about it enough. But I felt betrayed in the sense of like, hey, this is who I thought you were. You know, like you shook the core of kind of what I, you know, like a lot of,
I think
a lot of the light I held him in
do
was based on.
Yeah, what he did there, I think, is more than just being gay. You left your family, right? Like you left what you were responsible for. So I think there's two things. There's like,
yeah, that's a separate issue.
You know, that just like if you're leaving for another woman,
yeah,
right? That's you're leaving what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And you made a covenant, even though maybe it was with the wrong person. People believe that are heterosexual.
There again, people who are not Christians look at marriage and the idea of like covenantal, and I think that's where Christians don't look at it enough as a covenant.
That's right.
And that's why Christians leave easily.
Like a covenant's a covenant's a covenant. Like go look at
between you and God, not between you and your spouse.
That's right.
Anyways,
but if you've made it with the wrong, if you're a guy, if you've made it with the wrong girl, you're still a covenant. And so if it's like you find out later that maybe, hey, you're gay, you've still made a covenant. So I think that's one.
There's a lot more to the story with him, even, which I would just leave out.
But the second part though about him, like someone just coming out as gay, yeah, the church is how would you respond to Christian coming out then in the church?
I mean, I think the Christian response is to live a celibate lifestyle, even if you have same-sex attraction. I think that the idea is, and this is where I think we go really wrong, because in our culture we pedestal sins, right?
Yeah.
You know, with that being one of the worst ones, and then of course, you know, maybe sleeping with your girlfriend, not as serious, and then, you know, well, as long as you don't get her pregnant, you're not like those kind of weird things that we do all that crap, or like perpetual pornography and masturbation addictions. For some reason we just don't talk about it, so then it's okay because nobody's talking about it, and you just wear the shame silently. So I think from my perspective, I just think that we whitewash what we want to whitewash, and we paint things in a horrible light that we're uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
I think that sin is sin in God's eyes. Obviously,
I think a lot of
things that cause more damage. Like I think even the idea of, like you say, somebody leaving their family. This guy, and there again, I would encourage people to study other stuff that he says. I think he's biblically sound to my knowledge. If he's not, I apologize. I haven't done a huge amount of research, but this Christopher Yuan guy just really, just gave me a lot of context. Another one's Rosaria Butterfield. Yeah. If people have people in their life that are dealing with this type of stuff,
Secret Thoughts of an Unlikely Convert.
Yes, I bought that book as well, and I just feel like in our church culture, it's just so funny how we would just look at it so different, right? Like some guy will show in our church, well, other churches are different probably, but in our church, you would show up with your girlfriend and you may well be doing the wrong things, and nobody's like ostracizing you anyways.
Exactly.
Like they might at some point question, not looking at you funny, but if two dudes walked in and they were holding hands, you know, somebody'd be lighting their hair on fire. I mean, you for sure would.
100%.
No, and I'm just saying, hey, we label sins and we prioritize them based in our human mind of however we feel. And I think that part's wrong. Right. So, when a Christian is in that spot, I mean, Christians need to be called to account. And I think that part is part that I'm not qualified to comment on. That's the part I wrestle with. When somebody would say to you, hey, I literally feel this attraction, you know, and I've had this come out of a guy's mouth many times to me. It's like, hey, I feel this attraction, but I was like, I'm married this does not feel natural to me. Right. And so like, am I the one to say, well, just doesn't matter? Or what
do you say to me when I'm attracted to
another woman?
Yeah. Doesn't matter, Kyle.
Right. No. So in that sense, I'm saying those sins are the same, but I'm saying to not have a desire for, this is where it's confusing for a person that's struggling same-sex attraction, or they'd be like, hey, God wants people to live in heterosexual, marriages, right? And now they have.
Well, we have all kinds of desires.
We have all kinds of deviant desires. We do. Well, not everybody, but you and I.
It's our brains are
weird.
It's nut job.
Anyways, this is a lot of talk about this. But it is important. It is important because it's not talked about enough. I can assure you of that.
One thing though, you said about having that couple over, Rosaria Butterfield, who you mentioned that book, The Secret Thoughts of an Unlikely Convert. She was a lesbian professor at a university, and she got saved partially through a pastor who wrote her a letter, and she couldn't figure out if this was a hate mail letter or if it was a love mail letter. She had two piles because she had wrote an article in their newspaper of their university, and she couldn't figure out where this pastor landed.
Was it a Christian university?
No.
Okay.
But she couldn't figure out where this pastor landed. And so she emailed him, reached out to him, and he had her over for lunch. And then she came over for lunch again. She came over for lunch again. She came over for lunch again. And 2 years later, she ended up becoming a Christian. But she just like kept peppering the guy, and they kept inviting her over. They always opened with prayer. They were very clear about what they said, but they just like
it was a couple, like a professor.
Yeah. No, they had just her over. But the couple, like the wife.
Yeah,
the wife,
I'm saying it was a husband and wife.
Husband and wife, yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, she now has written a second book called The Gospel Comes with a House Key.
I bought that one.
Or a door key.
I bought that
But she talks about how so much of people coming to faith in Christ and sharing the gospel is done in community and having an open home and knowing people, like actually knowing them, not preaching at them, knowing them. Because when people actually know you care about them as people, then it's going to be much easier for them to share with you that they're struggling with anything. And then when you speak into their lives, the truth, which might be harsh and or just like brutally honest, they'll be able to take it because they know you love them, and it's not coming from a place of like preachiness. And I think that's really, really important because there's just too much pointing fingers from people at people we don't know.
Yeah, or even do. I mean, people tend to, even in our circle, in our family, will like I think people drop little nuggets of things that are personal to them and test the waters and see how this person will respond.
Oh, yeah.
And at some point, and this will happen even in a marriage, I think, because I see it, where it's like, hey, I've trusted this person, I've shared little bits, and I get it slammed back in my face or turned around on me or used it as a weapon against me. And so I think, how we respond with sensitive information, I see even in my own marriage where quickly I can like respond in a negative way or a critical way or get riled up when my wife's just trying to share her heart, but it's like I just can't take it, so I just respond poorly. It's like, well, how quickly is someone going to share their heart when they're getting skewered for something, right?
That's right.
Yet we would all say that we want people that are close to us and to be vulnerable and to trust us, right? But like, are we trustworthy, right? So.
And are we not being too sensitive as well? I think because sometimes we just need to like just get used to it. I remember Dave Curry telling me. So when I first told Nicole that I'd been unfaithful, she didn't really respond at all for like 6 months.
Yeah, just no reaction.
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, like it was just very like it was off. But then so we started going for counseling and talking, and then that changed. Nicole started communicating, but it was like very, very angry at me and
which should be normal.
Just like, of course. But like, it was just like every type of, and it was really hard sometimes. And I remember talking to Curry about it, and he's like, Kyle, she's communicating. Before you're getting nothing.
Be thankful.
Does it matter? One day she can work on how and like making it nice and round corners and stuff like that and communicating effectively. Right now she's communicating. So be happy because that's more than you were getting before. And that's really stuck with me just through other things as well. It's just like, hey, sometimes we don't like how someone's saying something, but what are they saying? Like, just take the time to actually figure that out and understand that, because it's usually, and people are going to suck at communicating sometimes too. And we can have grace for that.
Did you do anything exciting for the Family Day long weekend? We're recording this just after the Family Day weekend. This will be in the...
No. So I didn't, because I work for myself, I didn't block it off as a day off. Like I didn't automatically do that. And so I have Calendly links that I send to people to schedule meetings with me. So I had 4 meetings with people looking for jobs yesterday morning. And then I met with my people in the Philippines. But then I took the afternoon off.
Okay.
So we had Lena over for dinner. We have her over for dinner every Monday night. It's my sister that's downstream.
Yeah.
And it's good. You went skating, right?
Yeah. The church had skating on Monday, and then we did hikes on the weekend. I did I don't think I told you this. I was going to call you at one point. I did a 36-hour fast.
Oh.
For the first time. So that was pretty interesting.
You thought about calling me?
Yeah. I just thought it'd be good for you, right?
I would have done it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Tell me when.
What's the longest you went? Probably done that before.
Probably
You've made some crazy weight loss
3 or 4
bets.
days.
Okay, with literally nothing but pretty much liquid.
It was a lemon fast, I think it was.
Okay.
I think it had a 7-day lemon drink fast, like 10 years ago. But I would just go just water with a little bit of salt in it for a week. You want to do that?
I don't think. I mean, I felt like 36 hours is pretty much near my max. I would like to do a 72-hour one. I follow people on Twitter, some guys that do that. I think it's pretty healthy. Plus, I'm totally addicted to food, right? It's my
Yeah, fair enough. You're a cereal guy.
Yeah, big cereal guy.
Okay, changing gears here. I was on Fox News this morning. I'm not a big Fox News guy. Every morning I look at Fox News. I open CNN and I open Fox News.
Okay.
And I'll
see how they spun the day's events.
Events, and then I'll might look at BBC. I almost never look at CBC or CTV or National Post or any Canadian news outlets. I did look at Rebel News a couple weeks ago for it, but I couldn't really get into it. But then I will go to YouTube and I'll watch a bunch of guys on there. For some news. But anyway, that's where I get my news. But that was a little bit. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.